Hey everybody, I just want to talk quickly about hand technique. Okay, I get this question a lot when I'm out playing and just in private lessons. So, a big thing that helps is the reflex pad. I am a huge fan of this. I've tried pads all growing up, all the gum rubber ones, and I never felt like they were helping. They felt like they were so bouncy already that they weren't really working my hands out. Like I could drop the stick and get like 17 notes, it seems like. This is the bouncy side. This is a double-sided pad. This is pretty. It's bouncy. It feels really good. It's pretty quiet even when you're hitting hard. Okay, the other side is more of a dead foam, basically. You don't get nearly as many bounces. Okay, just kind of you drop the stick, it dies. You try it out on this side. You get about 7 or 8 more bounces. So basic warm-ups that I've been working on forever are just singles, right? And before we jump into that, let's just talk about how I hold the stick. It's a very natural thing. If I'm gonna shake your hand, okay, I bring my hand up to shake your hand. That's where I put the stick in. That for me is the most natural position for your arm. You're not using muscles or tendons to turn it over. That already feels like I'm stressing in this wrist. I know guys that have had wrist problems from that. So I'm not a huge fan of this palms down grip. I'm more relaxed. Elbows are kind of in a little bit, relaxed at your side. That to me feels really, really natural and comfortable. Okay, so the first things we're gonna work on, right, are just singles. Right, left, right, left. Or if you're lefty, left, right, left, right. The thing you really wanna work on when you're doing this is even. You want the even sound between your hands. You don't want this. This is not what you want. Okay? You want it to sound the same. At any volume. Don't snooze on the really quiet practice. Practicing quietly is one of the most valuable things you can do on this instrument. Anybody can sit down and be loud on the drums, right? But to play quiet with control is really difficult. I work on my singles and doubles at the quietest I can. Okay? All the way up to that on a drum is very, very, very loud. It doesn't take a lot to get a huge amount of volume out of a drum. That's just the nature of the instrument. So a great exercise, singles, go for the even sound. Into doubles, back and forth. I will forever practice that. It's never right. It's decent, but it's never right. And it's a great, because when you're playing on the drums, you're doing that all the time. Like a, right, left, right, right, left, left, paradiddle diddle. That's one of the most useful things you can use on a kit. Okay? So just working between slow, singles, doubles, singles, doubles, singles, doubles. So right there, I was just doing singles with each hand. So Same pulse. And at that tempo, at the slower tempos, it's really hard to make everything super even. It's not as easy as it seems. Everyone says, "Oh, I could do that." And they kind of check out. They don't really listen to their sound. So if you listen to it on a drum, it really changes the game, because you want to eventually be practicing on an instrument, okay, not just a pad. But this pad is amazing. I can't recommend it enough. The dead side for me is the one to go. So check out the Reflex pad. To get to a drum, so right there, I would have to work on that, right? Going to singles that's not quite up to speed. I'd either have to muster it out more or slow it down. These are the kind of things that I practice because they're useful on a drum set, okay? That's as quiet as I can play in the center of a drum. That's a lot harder than it seems. Try it out on your drum at home, and when you think it's quiet enough, cut that volume in half. That's how quiet it needs to be, okay? So those are really basic. We're gonna get into a lot more difficult patterns coming up, pulling out accents, but that's just the simple stuff up front. Singles and doubles, they gotta be really clean. Going between them should be as smooth as you can make it. Another simple technique that people overlook all the time, press roll. And practice them again as quiet. All the way up to loud, okay? And a lot of people have trouble with them. They kind of sound like this. You're pushing too hard and you're not letting the buzz finish into the next one. So the first thing I do is I check each hand to make sure they're balanced. They should sound the same, and then you blend them like this. So you're kind of passing the baton off to the other hand. As you can see, I'm actually letting go of the stick to get that sound. So it's just the weight of the stick. And buzz rolls are your only way you can make a sustained note as long as you want. You can hit a cymbal, but at the end of the day, the cymbal's going to decay on its own unless you have mallets, which is also a roll. Buzz rolls are the coolest thing that are so overlooked to me, especially in grooves. You know, people are you got to add these drags and stuff. You know, it adds so much to a beat. That's all the stuff for me. That's all the pepper and sea salt and all that cool stuff is these little things, the little drags in. So you could either do it 2 strokes or you could do a buzz. All right, let's move on to some more advanced stuff. All right, let's move on to something a little bit more involved. It's still easy to understand. This is a really cool exercise that's also a cool groove that I've been using. So it's 3 in each hand, 2 in each hand, 1 in each hand, 2 in each hand. So So 3, 2, 1, 2, and then loop it. And that's a cool one because it gets your hands jumping pretty quickly back and forth from 3s to 2s to 1s, back and forth. Now, I started doing it on just a drum, and then I realized if I move the hands to a different sound source, like the hi-hat, you get this. Kind of a cool little groove, okay? So if you add a kick drum in there, it starts leading down to some different ideas, okay? So let's just stick with the sticking for now. So it'll automatically lead you, once you get used to that basic pattern, down to some other interesting kind of grooves, right? It's also just a good exercise for your hands. The way I came up with it, there's an exercise where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 8, and then back. So the hardest part of doing that exercise is the bottom 3, because there's such little space when you start doing them fast. It goes by really quickly. So I just shrunk it down to 3, 2, 1, 2. And then I realized it's 16 notes. You're kind of in a groove idea. Okay. Try that one out at home. You can move it around. You could do it on your ride cymbal. Okay, you could probably just add quarters. But it'll break up your hands in a new way, or just do it on a pad, just to keep it even. Okay, so you get the point. We go all the way up to 8, okay? That's just the stickings with 16th notes. So that alone is hard. It takes a long time. It's a lot of focus. I'm not going to play through every one of these. It would be a 15-hour video to do all of these. But you get the idea. So you're switching the stickings between the 3, and there's no feet yet, okay? So the next logical step for me is add a quarter note pulse, or just a pulse behind all of this. So you can see it when there's no pulse behind it, you just hear these 16th notes with accents. There's not a big contrast for the accents to rub against. So when you have that quarter note hi-hat, it's kind of checking everything in a cool way. And slowly build up to this, okay? Get your hands comfortable. I would start with maybe just doing singles with the hi-hat at first, okay? So just go through the singles. 1, 2, ready, go. So then by the time you get to the 8, you're kind of just playing like almost like a train beat or a 16th note beat with the backbeat if you want to hear it that way. So what this exercise does that's really cool for me and for a lot of students is opening up their ears to different patterns. Okay, you can let's take this one I've used before. It's really cool. You take the 5s with doubles. So that on a snare drum on one sound surface is like this. It sounds cool, whatever tempo. Okay, it's a double, and that's what I like. It's a double stroke roll. Everyone can relate to that. Right, right, left, left. But most people play a double stroke roll kind of like this. It's very dugga 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 on the downbeats, okay? It's very much 4/4 square. When you start pulling out those second strokes and making it in 5, you can break it up on a hi-hat and a snare and get this. Which is very hip, because if you play it in a beat as a fill kind of idea, check it out. You get kind of a cool one-bar thing that's a little different, and you're just doing the exercise. And right after that 4th accent, which would be on your second hand, the next 16th note is the downbeat. So it really lays out really nicely. So all of this stuff is applicable on the kit. You can take the right, left, left sticking, okay, and break it up. Let's just use, just the hi-hat for a pulse. And you already are kind of off into this kind of Tony Williams Elvin zone, because you have that kind of triplet-y feel off the right, left, left. once you work through all these exercises, your hands are much more comfortable pulling out these accents and moving around the kit in a really musical way. Okay, so the goal here is to put the 3 stickies together with all of the accents and then running through everything continually. So I'm going to go through a few of them here so you can get the idea. It's super long if you do everything. So let's just go through a few of them. I'll start off with the 3s and work my way up. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. So you guys get the idea. It's a long process. It takes a lot of focus to do the beginning to the end. That is your goal. And let's move on. There's one more variation I want to talk about. Once you've gotten to this point, I'm going to switch it up on you. And now we're going to go into 8th note triplets on the snare. Okay, so starting with the simple, just single sticking, no accent, keeping the feet. So our pulse is the same. Okay, so as you can see, it starts to get very difficult because my tendency is to want to rush where the accents are. As you get and this is kind of with anything when you're learning something new. As you're pushing your brain and your body to do new things, typically you're going to want to rush everything. So for me, the biggest thing you can do is relax. The more relaxed you are, the more you sit up, the less you hold your breath. Everything seems to work out a little bit better. This stuff is still really difficult and it's going to feel very uncomfortable in the beginning. But again, take one at a time. Just do the 3s in the beginning with, even just with singles. Do those stickings. Do each chunk. Do the 3s, 4s, all the way up to 8. And then slowly try to put the 3s and the 4s together. See how that transition goes. Then do the 3s, 4s, and 5s. See how that goes. And by the time you build up, your hands are going to be so smoking by the time you finish all of these exercises. It's really been super beneficial to me in the last year or so since I've been developing all of this. So the whole point of all of this stuff, when you finally can do all of this, is you can sit down and play the drums and not really feel like there's a barrier technically that you can't get through. Because a lot of these patterns are way more difficult than a lot of the stuff you're going to typically be playing. So you're way higher, your bar is set way higher usually than what you're playing, So when you go to a gig after you've been working on all of this stuff and you just have to go... That seems like a cakewalk. So really pushing yourself, and I hope this exercise helps you get to where you want to be on the drum set as a player. Thank you so much.